17 games in 17 days coming up. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, June 19th, 2025. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off your first purchase. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, you can check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. So the Mariners are off today, and hopefully they're getting in some good rest because they won't get another day off until July 7th. 17 games in 17 days coming up, including the next 10 on the road against the Cubs, Twins, and Rangers. Talk about the Cubs series in a bit more detail a little later on. But Colby, right now, let's talk a little bit about this stretch. You know, with the trade deadline only really a little over 5 weeks away now, it's not hyperbolic to say that this upcoming stretch could make or break the Mariners season, because look, the reality is it's going to weigh heavily in the decisions that have to be made shortly thereafter, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 17 games in 17 days, but it's also 23 games in 24 days before you get to the All-Star break. And the All-Star break is, by just about everybody's account, that is the start of like trade season. The draft will have been finished. Most teams front offices, that's their focus right now. So after the All-Star break is really when teams start to make that determination of we're in, we're out. Let's start having serious conversations. Let's start putting names and all of that. And they're starting that right now, but it doesn't really start right until the All-Star break. That is when real progress gets made in a lot of trades. And if you go in there and you're 6 games out under 500 and you're 9 games out of the division, there is zero incentive whatsoever for John Stanton and Chris Larson to allow Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander to go add to this team. Why would they? What is the incentive? What is the difference between winning 83 games and missing the playoffs and winning, 78 games and missing the playoffs? There is none. There is none. You're not making any more money out of that, and you're spending money just to chase an extra 3 or 4 wins that aren't going to matter. You have to perform well over the next 23 games. And it starts with 17 in a row, and they're against pretty good teams this time around. And when you just look at what they did in the last 21 games, where they played a lot of bad teams, and they went 8-13, you killed any margin of error you had by going 8-13 over your last 21. If you had gone 13-8 over your last 21, you could kind of just try and survive until the All-Star break. You could just kind of be like, hey, let's just, these 23 games, if we go, 9-14, that's okay, because we went 13-8 before, and we're kind of, we're right where we need to be. But you can't do that right now. This is a team that's 1 game over 500. They're 5.5 back of the division right now as things stand. They are, I think, a full game out of the last wild card spot, which right now, because the American League is so mediocre to upright straight up bad, they're still in it. Good. But again, if you have a bad 17 game stretch here,
they're half game out, by the way, of the last wild card. Yeah.
If you have a bad stretch here over the next 17, over the next 23, however you want to divvy it up, right? Your season could end, because one thing we know for a fact is that the Mariners, like the people in the organization right now, the players in the organization right now, are not good enough for you to make the playoffs. That is a straight up fact, because they haven't been. And this is basically the same team we saw last year on paper. They're about as healthy as they're going to get. They'll get Rayleigh back here maybe as soon as Friday, and he'll help a little, but he's not a season altering player. This team needs help. They need outside help. And the Mariners know it. Ownership knows it. The front office knows it. But guess what? The front office can't do anything that ownership won't sign off on. And you have to give ownership a reason to sign off on these things.
Right.
Like rentals are out the window if you have a bad road trip here. So all your Geno and your Naylor and all that stuff, forget about them. They're not happening. Ryan Burn's not happening. Okay. And so these next 17 games, these next 23 games, I think the next 23 will determine the entire season. By the way, the next 17 are really important because you know who those last 6 are against right before the
I do.
Tigers.
Yeah.
On the road.
Yeah.
Like you have to get to, you know, the All-Star break at least around 500. You have to. And right now you're only 1 game over 500. You have no margin for error. And that is why the last 21 games have hurt, because you've played the Angels, you've played the Orioles, you've played Cleveland right in the middle of their little cold stretch. You played Boston without Devers, without Bregman, without Abreu, without Casas, and you failed. You failed across the board. In fact, the only series that you won against a decent team is a team that's also struggling right now all of a sudden, the Minnesota Twins. So you had an opportunity to really like make these next 23 games still somewhat important, but you know, just survive and you're fine. Surviving it looks different now. What surviving looks completely different now because of how poorly you played over the last 3 weeks. So these next 23 games, they're everything.
Yeah.
Because if you epically fail, right? If you botch these next 23 and you go 8-15, which considering how they played over the last 6 weeks now, totally on the table. If they do that and they're 6 games under 500 and they're 9 games out of the division and they're 3 or 4 out of the wild card with a couple teams to jump in front of them, there's no reason for them to buy, period. There's no reason. You can't even fault them for not buying, especially rentals, if they're 9 games out of the playoffs. Like it just
they won't buy rentals at that point. I still think that under really any circumstance, especially if Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander feel that their job is at least safe beyond 2025 for 2026, that they'll buy something that helps them in 2026.
Cool, which will do absolutely nothing in 2025 because you'll be buried.
And then the other thing too is that if you fail on this stretch, you're going to be at a point where trading Andres Munoz, trading JP Crawford, trading Randy Arozarena, trading Matt Brash or Gabe Spire or Dylan Moore, really anyone that your major league roster is most likely going to get worse. So, we can talk about, there's still, left after this stretch. They get to a point where they decide, the best course of action for us to take is to trade some of these guys off of our major league roster. This already painfully mediocre roster is going to get worse.
Yep.
So without significant outside help being brought in, there is nothing that inspires confidence in me that, hey, maybe, they can just kind of put it all together, with what they pretty much have already, and they can make a run still in a mediocre American League.
Right. Also, this thing goes sideways over the next 3 weeks. There might be a regime change at the top, and you want to see chaos being thrown into a trade deadline. Have your GM and your president of baseball ops, fighting for their jobs during that time period and see what type of deals they make. Like it's disaster is on the horizon if the Mariners flop here over the next 23 games. Again, it's not hyperbolic. I'm not trying to come up with a hot take here. The next 23 games are going to decide the season. They're going to decide the course the rest of your season takes. It is not hyperbole. It is not me trying to make the next 23, like the next 23 games are the most important 23 games in the regular season, bar none. Because if you fail, the only thing that will save you at that point is the ridiculous, the 14 game win streak, the 18 out of 22 and something like that, right? Like it is something that is beyond reasonable for any team to expect from any team, let alone this team, that they could do that. So it is going to set the entire direction for the rest of your season. And it starts with 17 games in 17 days, 10 on the road against, the best team third best team in the National League. another wild card contender who's battling with you, who right now has the tiebreaker against you. But you have the tiebreaker against Minnesota. Win a couple games against Minnesota. At least you have the tiebreaker there. Yeah. And then you get a short little homestand after a day off, and then you get a short little homestand, no day off, and then after your last day off of the first half, you get to play the Yankees and the Tigers on the road. It is so critically important.
After that final game against the Tigers, there will be 66 games left, and once you come out of the All-Star break, you're playing the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
So this is go time. And time might be running out for Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander as well. So this is going to be a fascinating next 3 weeks to see play out. We're going to talk more about what success, what failure, and what maybe somewhere in between looks like for the Mariners on this upcoming stretch in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Trade Coffee. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee, crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got a roast you'll love. So I took Trade's quiz. It only took a minute, and the first bag they sent me was spot on. The coffee was fresh, smelled amazing, and honestly, kind of ruined grocery store coffee for me in the best way. And if the first match isn't perfect, Trade will replace it for free until they get it just right. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TRADE.com/LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your 1-month trial. Drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. For instant reactions following every Mariners game, be sure to tune into the Mariners postcast with Anderson Hurst and Christopher Crawford, available on both the Locked On Mariners YouTube and podcast feeds. So with the Mariners playing 17 games in 17 days, that also means that Anders and Chris have 17 postcasts in 17 days ahead of them. So good luck with that. Hey, before we
record every day, woe is me. That must suck.
Hey, we at least get weekends off. So
only because you want them. Yeah,
you want them. You want them too. You want them too.
I would record every day if I could. In fact, I have before.
No, he wouldn't.
Hey, you know what? We record 9 episodes a week during the peak season, so that is more than one a day.
That's right. That is including, of course, Patreon episodes. If you haven't listened to those, if you haven't checked those out, patreon.com/control the zone. And that is not the only plug that I'm about to make here at the top of segment 2.
I record 9 episodes a week every week because I do 2 post-game shows on our Patreon.
That's right. He does.
So
he does. You should check that out. You should subscribe to either tier 3 or tier 4 on the Patreon. You get access to those post-game shows. But like I said, that's not the only plug that I'm going to make here at the top of segment 2. The other plug that I'm going to make is our Feeding America fundraiser, of course, as we do always here at the top of segment 2. Other than Matthew, you guys slacked yesterday. Matthew came through with a $50 donation and everyone else silent. Get on it, people.
The Mariners don't win and all of a sudden nobody's in a charitable mood. The Mariners didn't feed your soul, so you're going to not feed America. That's Shame on you.
That's right.
Yeah, but you guys know what we're doing by now.
Shame.
That's
Shame.
right.
Shame.
That's right. You guys know what we're doing by now, though. We are raising money for Feeding America. We being the community, raising money for Feeding America, which is a great organization that provides meals to people who don't know when their next meal is coming. Over 50 million Americans don't know where their next meal is coming. They are food insecure. And 1 in 5 children don't know where their next meal is going to come from or when it's going to come. And Feeding America aims to change that. They're a great organization. Every dollar that is raised by them, they turn into at least 10 meals, which is just incredible bang for your buck. We can feed America 1 dime at a time, really. And that's why we love partnering with them. We did this a couple of years ago. We raised $15,000. Right now we're slowly approaching $6,000. with about 3 weeks to go in our fundraiser. So if you guys want to donate, there is a link in the description of all the episodes, including if you're listening on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. There's a link in that description. There's a description in the YouTube description and all of that. So click the link, donate. All the money goes straight to them. You don't have to filter it through us. So yeah, it's a great donation. Again, every dollar feeds 10 people. So every dollar counts. Ty and I are also pitching in for every new subscriber we get on this channel. We're donating a dime, which is one meal. And right now, I believe we're at 150-ish new subscribers since we started this. So that is 150 meals that you guys essentially are donating just from clicking up the subscribe button. And it really does all help, and it all matters. Every meal matters. And right now with the economy, not to get into it, with school being out for the summer for most people, for most kids are losing that one guaranteed meal a day that they had. So Feeding America is a great organization. It's totally worth it. I think we can all agree that nobody in this country should be starving. There's no reason for it, especially no children. So Feeding America aims to end all that, and we can help them do it. So thank you for everybody who has donated. We set out with a goal of 2,500, and we've already blown past that, but now we're trying to see how high we can get here with about 3 weeks to go. So I know we're kind of in the dregs right now of our fundraiser, right in the middle. The Mariners are playing terribly. Our numbers are down. Fewer people are listening to us. Who can blame them because of this terrible baseball team? But let's not take it out on those who are just trying to scratch out enough money to feed themselves and their families. So Feeding America, it's a great organization, and it's an awesome fundraiser. And again, thank you to everybody who already has donated, everybody who's subscribed, all of that. Really do greatly appreciate that.
So yeah, thank you everyone for donating. Really appreciate your generosity, and let's keep it going. Let's see how far we can take this thing until the All-Star break. So let's talk a little bit about this 17 game and 17-day stretch for the Mariners. We can also just add in the other 6 games with the Yankees and Tigers as well if you want. What does success look like over that stretch for the Mariners?
They're not going 15-8. Forget it. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where success is a little bit dependent on what other teams in the league do. But I think if you lose much more ground on the Astros, that kind of becomes a bit of a pipe dream. Now, again, the American League is so mediocre that I think if you're around 500 come the All-Star break, you're probably going to be in a pretty decent shot, like a realistic shot to go out there and still buy. So if you win 11 or 12 of the next 23, just play 500 ball. When you factor in the lack of off days, when you factor in the quality of opponent that they're going to face over most of this stretch, I think if they win 11 or 12 games, I think you consider that to be pretty successful. I think anything less than 11 is a little dicey. Anything less than 9 is abject failure, and even 9 is not great. Like 9 is it's so, because like the difference between what's successful and what is a disaster is basically 1 win. Like if you go 10 and 13, you're 2 games under. You have to kind of see what everybody else does to know if that's good enough or not. But if you go 9 and 14, it almost doesn't matter what anybody else does, because you're 4 games under at that point. You've almost certainly lost ground in the Astros. You're almost certainly behind a couple of teams for that last wild card spot. So it really is just this thing where like it's almost impossible to say like this is this is the in between of where they like, because 11 or 12 wins is great. And anything more than that is amazing. It changes the narrative entirely if you win 13, 14, 15 games. But anything less than 11 wins, 10 wins is like, they're screwed. Like there's such a lack of margin of error. And again, this is because of the last 21 games where you weren't playing these teams and you had the off days in between. where
had to
you
stack
went
wins against the Angels and the
right,
Orioles and the Diamondbacks.
right,
Yeah, and you didn't.
and the Nationals. You went 8-13.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that was your margin of error, and you blew it.
So I'm really curious about the gray area there, right? That like
There is
10
one.
to the like the 9 to 12 win-ish range over the next 23 games. We've been speaking in absolutes over the course of this entire episode that, like, you know, you do this and this is going to happen, or if you do this, it means this, right? Is there an outcome though, potentially, where on the other side of it you go, I still don't know what this team is, and I don't know what they're going to do?
I think
Because I mean, like if they come out on the other side of this and they're pretty much hovering around 500 again, they may very well be still just like a half game out of the wild card.
right, and I think at that point you're in.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the whole point is that like
So then
over the
that's
next
a
23.
success.
Yes, I think if you can reasonably look at this team and say, yeah, they're right in the mix for a playoff spot. I think that's a success. And so like, and by in the mix, I mean like they need to be within probably 2 or 3 games of either the division or the wild card spot. And there can't be like 4 or 5 teams in front of them for that last wild card spot.
Right.
Like it's very subject because again, we see her be like, oh, they're only 2 games back. And it's like, yeah, but they're behind Toronto, Cleveland, Kansas City, and Minnesota. Like that's a lot of teams to jump, even though it's not a lot of games to jump. So it's all going to, again, depend a lot on how other teams fare in that stretch. But at the end of the day, if you are, 3 or 4 of the division and you're a half game back of a wild card or 1 game back of the wild card and you're first or second team out, then yeah, I think you're in. Like that's really what it is for these next 23 games is to just make sure you're in a position where ownership really can't say, no, we're not buyers. Like you have to be in a position where you kind of have to force their hand. And again, because the American League is so weak, which is really your saving grace right now, being around 500 probably puts you in that position. So I think to me, the gray area is almost non-existent in this case.
Do you think that they will take anything that they might have learned from how 2023 went and apply it to 2025?
I think they might be more aggressive in trying to have a 2023 deadline they wanted to have, actually. You guys remember 2023, they traded Paul Sewald.
Yeah.
That was the one deal they did get done. And then they also tried to trade Teoscar Hernandez. Sounds like they got pretty close, honestly. It sounds like they wanted Austin Shinton, and the Rays said no, which hilarious in hindsight. It sounded like they were really close to trading Ty France to Minnesota, which, obviously didn't happen, but
right.
It ended up took a couple years. It took a year, but yeah, he's there now.
But we saw, the run that they were able to go on. And again, I don't have really any sort of faith in their ability to do that again if they do nothing at the deadline. But they went on that run in 2023. They wound up being in first place in the AL West by the start of September. And also this year, the circumstances might be a bit different for Dipoto and Hollander, like we've talked about. Those guys might be fighting for their jobs, whereas in 2023, they weren't. So how does that maybe impact the aggressiveness? I don't think, look, like we talked about yesterday, even when they were 34 and 41, they made a trade for a rental bat like Carlos Santana. Maybe they still do that. Maybe they trade this year's RJ Schreck for Justin Turner, even if they are a game or 2 under 500. And maybe they're 3 games back of the wild card, 4 games back of the wild card.
Right. But are they going to make the painful move?
Right.
Are they going to trade, Laz Montez? Are they going to trade Harry Ford?
If the player helps them in 2026, probably.
Maybe. I mean, is John Stanton going to let a guy he might fire make that decision for him, though?
That's the other thing, too. Right.
So yeah, again, it's a very murky situation, which is why you want to be at the end of this 23 game stretch. You want to be in a situation where it's like there's really not much gray area here. Like obviously the answer here is to buy, because we know that when there is gray area, Jerry's reaction has been more or less, we'll see what the market says. And the market this summer is absolutely going to favor sellers. 100%. It will every summer. As long as there's this third wild card, it's always going to be a seller's market, always, because there's only going to be 3 or 4 true sellers. And most of the teams that are sellers, they're sellers because they suck. Purposefully, they suck. Whereas Seattle, if they're a seller this year, it's not because they lack talent. Well, it is because they lack talent. It's not because they lack top end talent, right?
Sure.
So, and it's not because they lack, these guys, oh, they're all old and they're all free agents at the end of the year. Like, no, like the Mariners have pieces that are going to be extremely favorable to just about any team that is looking to buy.
Between Luis Castillo, JP Crawford, and Andres Munoz, the Mariners might have the best starting pitcher, the best position player, and the best reliever available at the deadline.
Yeah. So I think if the Mariners bomb here over the next 23 games, it's going to be very hard for Jerry and Justin to not look at that and be like, I mean, look, we love JP, but he's having a career year. He's a free agent after 2026. We have Cole Young, who is a shortstop. We want to see play. We have
Colt Emerson coming up.
Yep, Colt Emerson coming up. I mean, I don't know. This isn't a factor right now, but what if they draft Arquette at 3? It's like, okay, well, Ava's going to be ready in a year and a half to take over that shortstop gig. And we could, save $5 million this year and $12 million next year. And yeah, it'll sting to trade, a beloved guy like JP, but we're not going anywhere this year. So yeah, like that's going to be tempting. And if there's a gray area here, like there was in 2023, I think Jerry and Justin, their hardwiring is going to be like, well, we're just going to take advantage of what the market tells us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they would seriously consider selling that. And that's why to me, there's really not much of a difference if they're like, if they go, over the next 20, if they go 6 or 7 and whatever, they go 6 and 17. I don't know. That's a big difference between them going 9 and 14 at the end of the day, because I think if it's murky, they're going to do what the market says they should do, and that is sell. So that's why I think these next 23 are that important, because selling is very much going to be on the table. And like I said, they might sell and buy something for 2026, but they're definitely going to consider the selling part.
Yeah. But again, the buying for 2026 thing is very dependent on what their job security is.
Right. I mean, how aggressive are you going to be for 2026? Also, if, like, are you going to take on a contract, John Stan, if you don't even know if your new GM is going to want it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. So that's why I don't see much of a gray area, to be honest.
All right. Well, this very important stretch starts in Wrigley Field tomorrow. We'll talk about that series with the Cubs coming up in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you once again by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a Mariners game, either by yourself or with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and suddenly you realize, I want to be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Mariners head to Wrigley Field for 3 against the Cubs starting tomorrow morning. for you guys in the Pacific time zone. The afternoon for me on the Eastern time zone. Very weird start times. All 3 games are day games. We will catch you guys after the game, but we won't be talking about the game. We're actually going to record a Fan Fiction Friday after the game and put that out. So we'll have a tweet.
Send in your questions or your trades.
Yeah. Don't send in questions. Send in trades. Some of you are a little confused sometimes about which episode is Mailbag Monday and which episode is Fan Fiction Friday.
By the way, if you guys have noticed on Mailbag Monday, when you're like, hey, do you think they would trade this guy and this guy for this guy? We don't answer those questions on Monday. Just because you put a question mark at the end of it doesn't mean you're fulfilling the rules of Mailbag Monday. Fan Fiction Friday is when you ask, hey, do you think they would do this and this for this?
Yeah.
Or what do you think of that? Monday is when you're like, hey, who are some, like, is there any like first baseman out there that we're not talking about that maybe we should be? Like, that is a trade question that we will answer on Mondays.
Yes.
Friday is specific players. We've been doing this now for like what, 2 years, 3 years?
But Colby, could they trade for Lars Nootbaar?
Yes. Next question. There you go. Like, that's a Mailbag Monday question.
But what about Edward Bizzardo and Cole Young for Josh Naylor?
Fan Fiction Friday. Okay, we've been doing this for 2 years, 3 years now.
Yeah.
Like, come on, people. And I know because I said that, we're just going to get a flood of questions. And that's fine because you know what? You messing around with me, I'm just going to mute you and you'll never get a question answered.
Wow.
I'm sick of it. Watched the Mariners for far too long.
Yeah. Colby's about to crack. You don't want to mess with him right now. Cade Horton against George Kirby. There was no segue to make there other than just getting right into the pitching.
Would you trade George Kirby for Cade Horton?
Shut up. Matthew Boyd for against I almost said for Emerson Hancock. Matthew Boyd against Emerson Hancock. And then Colin Ray against Logan Gilbert. Those are the pitching matchups. Matthew Boyd.
They ever mattered.
Former Mariner. Gonna be nice to see him. He's having a really good year.
Yeah, he's shoving. Which
is
great to see.
He impressed in those 8 starts that he had with the Guardians last year and got himself a nice little deal with the Cubs, and it's paid off and then some for Chicago. So 2.79 ERA right now, 3.60 FIP. He's been worth 1.5 wins.
Good pitcher,
Matthew Boyd.
One of the easiest guys in baseball to root for. Not on Saturday, but I think the bigger concern is Kyle Tucker and and Nico Horner and
Pete Crow Armstrong. This Cubs offense, it's really good. it's really good. This is terrified. That's not not even mentioning Seiya Suzuki and Carson Kelly's having a really good year, and Ian Happ, Dansby Swanson. This is a good team. No, Dansby Swanson, I mentioned him. He's been good defensively, not particularly good offensively.
No, but that doesn't matter. Neither is Trevor Story.
You lost because of Trevor. Well, you lost because of your offense, but Trevor Story dealt the killing blow yesterday. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it happened in like the 4th inning.
Yeah,
that's how bad the offense is.
Also Justin Turner is on this team.
Yeah. Not too worried about that.
I'm predicting a Justin Turner walk-off.
I mean, it's Wrigley. I think
he's only got a 60 WRC plus, but I think that would be very fitting for Justin Turner to walk off the Mariners in 2025.
I mean, I guess, but remember, Turner turned down more money from the Mariners
still
early in the offseason. So, I don't think Justin
what his
Turner,
reasoning was. Remember, his reasoning was,
but I don't think
you're going to do. Which
I don't think Justin Turner is in a position to bash the Mariners when the Mariners were, by all accounts, the high bidder on Turner, and he chose to go elsewhere. Which, by the way, I'm not saying he made a bad choice.
But shout out to our self-aware king, Justin Turner, who was I'm all you're going to add this offseason? Really? Yeah.
I mean, and considering he has a 60 WRC plus, I mean, he really hasn't been better than Donovan Solano since May 1st. So
Donovan Solano quietly been pretty solid lately. Yeah. But yeah, this Cubs team is terrifying. This 17 game and 17 day stretch does not get off to a good start for the Mariners.
On the plus side, Andres Munoz is well rested because he pitched in one of the last 10 games.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a good thing you saved him all those times for when he had a lead. Whew.
Question for you. Do you think they'll be in a position where it makes sense to use him in the series at all?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a different question than will Dan use him when it makes sense to use him?
It's also a different question than will he be in a position for a save as well?
Unfortunately, those are not the same thing. Yeah. Or those are the same thing, rather, when you're talking about Dan Wilson.
All three of those questions are very different.
And that's a problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our show. Happy Juneteenth, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez. Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.